Hello, and today we're going to talk about an issue of senior executives misconduct and why it occurs, and let's look at why so little is written and covered on this issue. So we all understand that to be a CEO, it's a very challenging job. So many things need to be done and addressed on multiple layers inside an organization. Just to be able to lead the company, it takes drive, it takes very specific sort of resilience and risk tolerance to be embraced by CEOs or the C-suite people. So we are talking about the fact that just for a CEO to be ready to set the right strategy for an organization, to align it with the organizational layers, and at the same time not only leading the top team, but also establishing the right rapport, the right communication with the board, and being the face to external stakeholders. It saps a lot of energy. It takes a great deal of time. So we're talking about superhuman efforts on the part of CEOs or anyone in that top leading role. So therefore, for companies who deal with their CEOs, and if things go right, nobody's going to question their integrity. Whatever they do seems to be fine. Although at the same time, because in light of recent revelations and scandals with misconduct of some CEOs or some senior executives inside certain companies, companies as organizations, they started acting a bit cleverly. So they could withhold the pay and kind of dangle it in front of the CEO to make sure he complies and behaves well, and at the same time to avoid the hassle of recouping the losses if something happens and there's some high-profile misdemeanor that occurs and gets the limelight. Well, definitely companies now become a bit more cautious about the people they employ or they invite to be their leading faces and to be their leading force. Therefore, it's understandable. Although at the same time, bringing in various platforms to make sure that this speak-up culture is fostered, and tracking and management of allegations is done on a professional level, and then the whistleblower rights and whistleblower protection against any possible retaliation within organizations. It's also all of the small things that happen and occur on the back of the ongoing COVID pandemic is a lot. I'm not even talking about the climate agenda, the carbon footprint, and sustainable goals, and all that other things on the progressive agenda that companies have to comply and demonstrate stellar behavior. So therefore, any misconduct on the backdrop of that would look even worse than in the pre-COVID days, plus this renewed zeal of a prosecution for misconduct by the DOJ, and now, as of effective of June the 3rd, announced by President Biden, this effort will be led by several agencies looking at lots of things. So we're living now in the world where the level of transparency is amazing. Anybody can use a smartphone or report or upload information, that shows some executives' misbehavior or misconduct or misdemeanor or missteps or hiccups or anything. That could be done just like that. It's not like in the good old-fashioned days when you would have to seek out a journalist and sell him the story. And then the journalist would have to go to his editor-in-chief to make sure that the newspaper gets interested in writing the story. So it's no longer the case. That level of transparency is amazing. And then at the same time, the shelf life of any executive these days is very short. They rotate in and out just like that. Well, for a number of reasons. Firstly, it's just because it's no longer that Teflon-coated, old buddy network. It's because of the level of competition that's gone up because of that, tense relations with China, with sanctions imposed on Russia and China, now with Chinese officials now announcing they're going to impose sanctions as well. So this world is going through some crazy times, and therefore, like CEOs who really want to indulge them with a few things, a fling here or a thing there, that would be like really, really bad because it comes at a cost. And that the cost of that mistake today compared to maybe 5 years ago, there's a huge difference. So we're talking about the issue, why would they do that to begin with? Well, based on my work with senior executives over the period of like quarter of a century in various roles and primarily in the oil and gas industry, I can tell you something that, there are various reasons for that. Firstly, it's just people get drunk on power and money, and as a result, the altered chemistry of the brain, takes its toll. So secondly, a lot of people who get drunk on power, they really want to exercise it when they still have a chance. That leads to stupid things. And, in Russia especially, a lot of Western CEOs or Western business executives, they had to succumb to, lots of different things, temptations and sometimes, misuse of their position and other misdemeanors, you name it. So therefore, it's interesting that if a person is put in a situation or an environment where they can pretty much test the system, it does happen, regardless whether it's Americans, Brits, Germans, it always happens. With some people, with a bit of a delay, with some people almost instantly. So now during the days of this kind of global capitalism, with global trotters being CEOs when they travel back and forth, companies have become wiser. They sometimes look at them as damaged goods or rotten apples, and they are quite reluctant to give them further promotions in the headquarters because they don't know if something from their past can catch up with them. Plus, let's face it, even though senior executives do embrace the business ethics and the business ethics training, it's just they need that framework in place to run their company, especially on mid-level, mid-management level, so that the system runs. Because you can't really shout commands like people used to before, running around and like yelling at people. So the business ethics now comes forth as a good tool to make sure you maintain that level of civility inside the company, and therefore also avoid any potential friction with other employees over misconduct or certain questionable behavior patterns. So that's one thing. Although when I sort of challenged and not just pushed a little bit senior executives on the issue of personal ethics, and I got a vehement pushback. They really fought me back on this. So personal ethics space, they got zealously where they still allow themselves a level of flexibility in terms of what they do. But that's basically to offset the pressures and risks and stress of the day. I can understand that. But at the same time, you also have to understand what's going on what's going on in the brain of an executive. We're talking about people who basically know that any issue could be solved with money. So that moves the whole decision-making mechanism into this financial area, where you use the financial instrument to iron out any problem, any wrinkle that occurs. So that completely removes the humane qualities needed. So this whole industry that's been running those articles about how senior executives need to demonstrate their empathy, trustworthiness, integrity, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's really unattainable because they simply can't do that physically. Because if you start being emotionally connected to what you do at work, you'll fall apart, you'll burst at the seams, just because that level of burnout is not sustainable. So therefore, a lot of people in the top demanding jobs, they look at the employees and people who work under them just as functions, as certain digits that they have to move around to ensure the outcome needed for them to keep their job. So, well, given that, you cannot really expect people to be, like Mahatma Gandhi or Mother Teresa, or, some sort of like a corporate saint, being at the same time a top performer. That's not possible. However, there are certain ways to mitigate that fallout, toxic fallout from their actions, just because it's in their own interest to stay grounded in this reality and not get carried away with what they believe and how they fancy themselves, because losing that job, losing that reputation means that, well, it's very unlikely you will be rehired, just like a whistleblower, who blows the whistle when certain things are discovered, and then, he gets the stigma. Never, ever gets hired again. So therefore, with the senior executives, pretty much the same. One misstep here, another hiccup there, builds up a track record, a history you cannot take to your new job. So now, having said that, that's sort of like I'm outlining the importance of our project, of what we are doing, the Transformative Business Ethics Initiative, that drives this full and complete transformation of any business executive in a matter of weeks, actually in a matter of hours, without any of our involvement, but at the same time empowers executives to come out of this fully charged and with all the hidden tweaks and settings and potential tapped and brought to the fore. So we'll look at that issue later again. So stay tuned. We'll look at this again from a different perspective, and I hope you will like this.